some numbers, right? Okay. I hope I satisfy your curiosity. Okay, so in the beginning, I'll explain the 7.5. For 23 years in Tunisia, they lived under what they call the 7th of November regime. So Ben Ali came into power in 87, the 7th of November. So we get the 7, right? It's a good luck charm. The question is, what's the half? And this is actually a clip from a documentary that just came out. And for 2 weeks, they were basically plastering the 7.5 on the web, and nobody knows what they're talking about. So they were creating a vibe, and I got to it. It got to as well. Okay, so this is it says the name of a documentary. So you got to tell me what's the half. So let me click on this. So if you see things in Arabic, I'll try to translate it. It says this one says أقوال خلدها التاريخ. هو سجعني باش نلبس النقاب. هو سجعني بس حبيت النهضة. Okay, so it says like words which were celebrated by history. He encouraged me, sounds like pure Arabic, but it's actually Tunisian dialect, to wear the niqab, and he encouraged me to love Ennahda. Ennahda is the key political party right now, dominating the Tunisian political scene. It's the Islamist party. Okay, so it's just a minute and a half, and you'll see exactly what that word means. So here's the video. So it's a propaganda productions piece. These are scenes from Tunis. And the narrator is speaking in High Arabic. There's a lot of sarcasm in the background. So we're going from the love of self to love of the nation, right? So you get the punchline for the half? Kinda? It's a half democracy. I mean. Everybody is speaking now out. I mean. Okay, so it's a production of Najib al-Qadi, and it's called 7.5. Okay, so his view of the matter is probably we have half a democracy. So let's see if it's the case, actually. So that's the bit for the 7.5. So what's the question with Switzerland and Sweden? Okay. So I'll talk about that, and I'll talk about propaganda, and then go back to numbers. Since we have an elections in 2 days, it's all propaganda. It's even if you hate it, it comes your way. I mean. Okay, so here's something I want you to think about. This is a 1,000-year-old problem. I mean, a man dies, he leaves 3 kids, 17 camels. He leaves half of his camels for the first, a third for the second, and a ninth for the third. How should we divide the camels? In fact, actually, it's not a 1,000-year-old problem. It's probably 1400. They attribute it to Ali ibn Abi Talib. I mean, the 4th caliph. I mean. Okay, so think about it. And how is this related to voting theory? And what if we have 35 camels? Okay? We're not going to kill the camels because the camel is the representative in parliament. Okay, so on Monday, we should know whether we're heading into 2014 or 1436. That's the new Hijri year as well. Okay, so all of this stuff that I'm posting here is not mine, actually. It's what people post online. I'm just going to share it with you, and you tell me if this is authentic piece of information or is this just propaganda right in your face, okay? Let's see. So, an update. So instead of the 1,500 electoral lists, actually, they were gleaned, and now we have only 1314. And instead of 15,000 candidates, it's only 9,449. This is the list, the official list, in fact, that was distributed by ISIE. This is the High Commission for Electoral. This is Electoral Commission, and this is the Nawat. It's actually respected news service from Tunisia. So it's only 13, 14 instead of the 563. So it's double what we had in 2011. Okay. Okay. So now the reference to Switzerland. So when you think about the Switzerland of the Arab world, you have to think progressive, open, tidy, clean. Okay, and usually the reference is to Bourguiba. So Bourguiba thought of Tunisia as the Switzerland of the Arab world. And this is not me talking. Actually, this is from a Tunisian Jewish website. It's based in France. So harissa is this hot sauce. And this guy is talking about how why Bourguiba really is behind this thing, right? I'm not saying this, right? He's saying it. And I'll tell you that some other people say it's a different thing. Okay. So the reason for it is that, well, they have these personal status laws that go back to the 50s. And so this guy is bragging about the fact that in France they enacted abortion in 75. And in Tunisia, women had the right to vote in 66, but the Swiss had it in 71, and the Portuguese had it in 75. Okay, so a little better than Switzerland? Maybe, I don't know. Okay, so this is the reference to Switzerland, and this guy, in fact, so this Tunisian Jew, brags about it. He says, for the father of Tunisia was the Swiss of the Arab world. The father meaning Bourguiba, right? Okay. Again, this is just the propaganda I'm sharing with you, right? This was written in 2011, just, what is this, April? 3 months after the revolution, okay? Okay. So for Bourguiba, Tunisia was the Switzerland of the Arab world. So this harissa website pays homage to him, and so did the new president that we have now, Marzouki. So Marzouki actually, in fact, dusted all the pictures of Bourguiba, which were in the underground of the palace, right? Because Zain al-Abidin actually hid everything. He wanted just his legacy. So, and made them into a museum kind of thing. Okay, this is one. This is Marzouki. So this is actually a picture from the NPR. So actually Marzouki, what he did, he opened the palace to thousands of primary school kids and high school kids, in fact. Okay, so he's trying to change the image of the president, this omnipresent. In Tunisia, you were in Tunisia probably, you've seen the pictures of Zain al-Abidin all over the place, huge posters, right? So he's trying to change that image, right? So he opened the palace for primary school kids. And an activist who was in exile and now he's the president. This is from the NPR Stephen in Keep Revolutionary Road Trip. They have a huge album of music. I mean, it's really cool. You should check it out. I mean, sounds of the Arab Spring, right? Okay. Again, these are just sound bites. So Bourguiba, for those who don't know him, this is an article from 57, right after independence. He wrestled the republic out of the Bey, who was ruling there for 300 years. But they called him the peppery little Tunisian. This is from the article from 57, actually, because he was kind of short and he felt bad about it, right? And actually, the reference is probably people who know the classics. There's an old play that goes back to the Romans called The Little Carthaginian, right? So peppery little Tunisian. There's somehow that old reference. But for historians, actually, Bourguiba killed history. Because anybody that opposed him just erased him from the map. So, okay, so it's not my specialty. But after the revolution, the images of Bourguiba started to reappear all over the place. A younger generation is starting to actually revive his legacy. This is a poster from the day of victory, actually. It was re-celebrated in 2011. Ben Ali killed this celebration. Okay, so Switzerland reference, Bourguiba, right? Here's an article from April 2012, I think. It's an interview with Rashid Ghannouchi. Ghannouchi is the main leader of the Islamic formation there. And in an interview, Mr. Ghannouchi wants to think of himself as a centrist. And there's that reference to the Switzerland of the Arab world. So Bourguiba, Switzerland of the Arab world, and Islam is Switzerland of the Arab world. Everybody wants to have the little Switzerland. There's the government of Switzerland, and there's the government in Tunisia. I mean, so the number of ministers, right? This is, again, all of these images are circulating online, right? So for every example that you put out, someone else will put out a counterexample to destroy your notion. Okay, so this is a reference to Switzerland. This is Mr. Ghannouchi. That's the way he thinks of himself as a man of reform. This is from his Facebook. And this is how his enemies, I told you I'm going to talk about propaganda first, right? This is how his enemies refer to him. This is actually a popular cartoonist called Z. And Mr. Ghannouchi is talking about the Tunisian version of PBS, the Public Broadcasting Service. But if you read the French, it's about the woman. He wants to curtail her movement, right? And it's kind of nasty, actually. Here's another cartoonist, and it's about crybabies with beards. I mean, Salafist type. Okay, they wreaked havoc for the last 3 years. Okay, so in this picture, he stands next to the prime minister at the time, Hamadi Jebali, and they cry too much. The bird there is a reference to the bird. This is the crow, right? But it's a reference to the dove the dove is a symbol of a Nada party. So this is a reference to the dove. It's a bird of ill luck, in fact. It's not good luck. So he says if they cry too much, you know what you should do? Take them out to break a demonstration or two. They'll be silent. Okay. Again, I'm showing you the propaganda, right? At some point, an Islamic scholar referred to Sheikh Ghannouchi, and he referred to him with the expression that they use for the disciples of the Prophet Muhammad. They said, radiallahu an, got into a lot of trouble. So it's a joke. It's a picture. I mean, in this picture you have President Marzouki and Sheikh Rashid, and in the picture it says, Sidi Sheikh, can you take the presidency and give me may God be pleased with him? So he answers, months of my son, the people are not happy with you. Do you think God will be happy with you? Again, I'm showing you the propaganda, right? So far I didn't show you any mathematics. Okay. And in fact, why not? I mean, may God be pleased with him, and may the blessings of God be with him as well. Okay, so you can actually use these expressions that are reserved for the disciples and the Prophet in reference to these politicians. Okay, I'm showing you the public discussion, right? So in some sense, after the revolution, there was so much religion, right? Okay, here's the Switzerland of the Arab world. It's not just Tunisia. I mean, Dubai is the Switzerland of the Arab world. I just Googled this thing, right? What else? The Gulf area in general is the Switzerland of the Arab world in the eyes of its own people, right? There's Palestine, the Switzerland of the Arab world. The Lebanese, they think of themselves as the Paris of the East, also the Switzerland of the Arab world. Okay, so it's a used reference. So what about Sweden? Sweden popped up in the electoral program of Nahda in 2011. Okay, and they were talking about the economic program of Nahda, and the piece that is boxed here says, Sheikh Ghannouchi, in more than one occasion, talked about the nature of their economic program. And it's not a capitalist system, it's not a socialist system, it's closer to the social democracies that are found in Sweden. This is the electoral program. Again, keep doing this. Let me move it a little bit. This is the electoral program. This is from a speech he gave in June of 2014. Again, I'm just showing you the propaganda, guys, right? He talks about the fall of Al-Asnam, the fall of the idols, right? He says, we brought down the idols, we brought, and in the lands of Islam and Arabism, and after today there will be no worship of Allat, Al-Uzza, or Hubal. These are the deities of Arabia in pre-Islamic times. They didn't stretch all the way to North Africa. Very specific, right? So again, there are these two discourses, right? Okay, so Sheikh Ghannouchi destroyed the idols. This lady is out to destroy the idol of the Sheikh. That's what she says. She says, Ziyad, this is a respected political activist, very famous for writing an open letter to Zain al-Abidin early in his career, for which she suffered for quite a bit. Okay, so you're out to destroy idols, I'm going to destroy your idol as well. She's not a relic of the past. And in fact, when there was a lot of tension, in the last 3 years, there was a lot of tension about religion in Tunisia. So this is from an open letter she wrote to Sheikh Ghannouchi, and she tells him, well, you kind of have to scale back from the public eye. Okay, so far I'm just showing you the propaganda, more or less, right? Since Sheikh Ghannouchi is an idol for some, and Ziyad wants to destroy that idol, he's got idol worshippers. Okay, that's one of his followers. And the way he portrays the dichotomy today in Tunisia, I mean, in 2 days they're going to have elections, it's between two forces, the forces of November 7th and the forces of October, let's see, this is October 18, 2005. So in 2005, all those who are opposed to Ben Ali, Islamist, leftist, nationalist, they gathered their forces and they formed this front to kind of face the dictatorial regime. So there's a whole discussion about these two fronts. So are we really trying to put these two fronts, or are we, in some sense, trying to kind of change the system? He stands actually diametrically opposed to this guy. This is the main political advisor of the president that is sitting right now in office, of Marzouki. He's a political scientist, the chief strategist of CPR. This is a centrist party. For CPR, they were the partners of Nahda in the Troika government. They really didn't want to deal at all with the relics of the past. They wanted nothing to do with them. And Nahda, basically, they wanted to kind of work with them somehow. Okay, so for him, really the new regime is about the 18th of October front. It has nothing to do with the past. Okay, so far I didn't show you any mathematics. Okay, So this stuff is actually happening right now. I mean, so Ziad tells Mansur, there's a whole debate about the 18th of October front versus the November 7th front, right? And she says, you're reviving this whole discussion because you want to find a purpose for your president. I mean, okay. In fact, you can read lots of text. All this text is available online. Okay. So this is part of the current debate in the last 2 or 3 weeks. So are we trying to, in some sense, find peace with the old regime that is trying to come back? Basically, the old forces of Ben Ali regrouped. They want to come back to the scene, or are we trying to basically break with that past? Okay, so there's a whole discussion about this matter. I'm going to just skip it. Okay, you see already the issues for people like her are still about what happened to the people that were killed in the revolution. Let me just skip the stuff about her. This is a clip from about 3 hours ago, maybe 4 hours ago. And someone who's not towing the line with the president of the party of Sheikh Rashid. And then he says, you know, and now they're trying to rally its forces for the ideology of for the sake of God. Okay. So there's two talks somehow, or 2 languages maybe. Okay. I'm going to skip this one. This is an official statement from the Electoral Commission that the 27 people that are running for president have been confirmed. This is just today, right? The president saying that he's going to vote for his CPR party. And all the figures of the past and the present imagining their future, I mean, living together. Okay. These are all images from what Tunisians are producing, right? I have a dream, I have a behem. Behem is the Arabic word for behemoth. It means a big, giant animal, right? It means a dumb person, right? Okay, I mean, people trying to make fun of politicians. This has never happened before in Tunisia. I mean, so you have to. I mean, I'm showing you images, right? Okay, I gotta show you some math. Okay, this is Sheikh Rashid. He says, "Why did we change?" They changed the whole outlook of the party. Actually, it doesn't look like an Islamic party anymore. It just looks like a modern conservative party with religion relegated to the back. Okay. Things that are kind of old. This is an old poem that basically was revived, and it's quite vile. This is the election day at the factory. The factory is a bar in La Marsa. They're going to have a big feast. These things, you have to imagine, this is actually sponsored by Heineken, right? It says, here we don't drink Celtia. Celtia is the local beer. All of these things in the last 2 days, I'm just showing you. Okay. They're the butt of jokes. So there's no respect whatsoever for anybody. This is the chief Salafist guy, plastered on an image of Ben Ali. He also wants to have a piece of the pie. And these are the technocrats. Remember, the Islamists were booted out a few months ago. And they left the seats for these guys to take over and prepare for these elections, which should happen in 2 days. Okay. And for some reason, the elections have been transformed into a shootout at the OK Corral between these 2 guys. So there's a werewolf, prime minister. I mean, he was a prime minister when Nahda was legalized. And he's been in power for 60 years. I mean, he's been in public office for 60 years. So they're not going to cede that easy, right? And Ghannouchi is trying to wrestle that out. Okay. Again, these are all the images of what's happening, and I took almost half the time. All right, so these are all the relics of the past. That's a relic of the past. He's running for president. A relic of the past. He's running for president. That was the former minister of Foreign Affairs. That's the son-in-law of Ghannouchi. So it's not really clear what's happening. Relic of the past versus, so relics of the past coming back again. That's another relic of the past. And they are doubting what happened in 2011. They said in 2011, we lost 17 seats we should have gotten. Okay, I got to show you why this is the case. This is not the case. But he was slated to become president after Ben Ali, actually. He was a foreign minister, defense minister. Okay, so I'm kind of boring you with all these images. Again, these are all compositions of the public, right? This one says the nature of the former ruling party is the nature of a hyena. It's always scared, but he's never shy. This is the relic of the past. This is Baji Qaid Sibsi. He got himself into trouble by referring to the chief MP of the Islamists is a woman. He said she's just a woman. He got into trouble. This was last week. And for that, he really got the wrath of women. This is a composition that people put together out. She's but a woman. Okay, these are all the new presidents. I mean, 27. You pick and choose. New images. Relic of the past. Past. A judge. An Islamist who backstabbed them. And there are authentic people. A leftist, centrist. Okay, so it's a whole mixed bag, right? So far I'm not showing you any mathematics. So this is the last I'm going to talk about this, right? So we got a mummy. That's what this is saying, right? So he's asking her, he says, do you know, Safiya, what's the authority of the state? And the answer is when you bring back a mummy to life. So we got a mummy. We got a fluke. This guy presented himself for the presidential, he's a presidential candidate. He's also an MP who wants to build a bridge from Tunis to Sicily. I'm not joking. And he wants to have damsels. You go to the market and buy a woman. I mean, he's married to an underage woman. Huh? Underage, yeah. He married an underage and got into a lot of trouble. Anyway, we got a clown and quite a rosy woman. I mean, she's a toughie. I mean, this is the vice president of the Tunisian parliament. And what she says, this is from another party propaganda page. It says, we established a constitution which protects liberties. In fact, they passed a constitution which is quite liberal, even though it was signed in by Islamists. Okay, so let's see. It's a cacophony in Bardo. Bardo is the presidential palace, and this is the palace where they have the parliament. Okay, we got a city that left entirely because the government hammering the people of the region, and this is the meaning of hammering. It's political murder. This happened yesterday. There was a terrorist attack in a southern suburb of the capital. Actually, this is a brigadier. Actually, a brigadier died. In fact, they crushed him today. They killed 6. So we have an election under the threat of terrorism. So, and it started in the south, actually, in Billi on the borders with Libya here. Okay, so these are the images. I'm showing you the images that Tunisians are seeing every day. This was from the burial of an activist who was killed in his car, an image of soldiers being killed. And this is a composition that says, terrorism started when you left this flag in your skies, and your silence is the true terror. I didn't make any of these images, guys. I'm just showing them. This is the first image as such. This was from the University of Manouba. A young Salafist man took down the Tunisian flag and plastered a black flag. And a young woman went up and wrestled the flag from him. This was about 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Then there was the Arab Spring, Spring of Arts. I'm trying to explain how this terror came into play. This is an artist, Mrs. Jalassi. She's a professor, actually. So she got into a lot of trouble because of this. There was a lot of protest. That's her art. La Marsa, yeah, in Abdaliya Palace, an old relic from the Hafsid dynasty. This is a Salafist showing his shroud to the interior minister at the time. They were on a TV show, and he tells. So what this says, it says in video, a Salafist raises his shroud in the face of the interior minister. This is Mr. Ali Laraid at the time. And they started raising up in the ante, right? I mean, that's what they did with it. So from downing a flag to basically killing eventually, right? Takeover of mosques. This is actually an interesting mosque. It's actually a mosque at the edge of the French city in the Medina in Tunis called Jama al-Fath. It was built by Bourguiba, and probably in the 70s, maybe early 80s. And it was somehow like an opening between the two cities, the French city and the Arabic city. And now on the day there was an attack on the American embassy, the khutbah came out of this mosque actually. This is a Salafist hotbed for some reason. And the reference here is to ISIS, right? You know, whenever they take a building, they put the stamp on it that this is the property of the Islamic State. This is a caricature, actually. Okay, this is the attack of on the American embassy in Tunis. Black smoke. Things changed from that moment. Here, all images here. These are the spoils of war. The wrong caliph. This is the former prime minister of Tunisia, Jebali. Let me skip this stuff. Okay. I think I'm gonna vote go exactly. I'm not gonna vote here. Let me show you where the mathematics start. So much propaganda, I fell for it, right? Yeah. That's exactly what happened to me. All right. Okay. These are the predictions of the parties for the elections on Sunday. This is a relic of the past, and they think they're going to win tens of seats. A relic of the past, they think they're going to win 80 seats. It's a different party. And the Islamists think they will win 41%. So I want you to look at the numbers I'm going to show you, and you tell me if this is going to be the case or not. And already propaganda, people voted already in Australia. So this just popped up just a few hours ago. And it shows that the relic of the past is winning against the Nahda and the rest of the rest of the list that don't matter. And this is actually the picture that was distributed by the Electoral Commission that says, nah, we don't do these kinds of things. It's not official. They will not announce things until after Sunday, I mean. Okay, so this is a Pew Research piece that just came out in October. And you can see things, the perceptions are declining in terms of how people see democracy. And even in terms of how people think of their favorite party, like in Nahda, for example, right? So, I mean, with support from 65% in 2012 to 31% in spring of 2014. Okay. Now you got to think, if someone tells you that we won 37% 3 years ago, and our numbers are declining, you expect them to win 41%? Probably not, right? Okay. Let me escape here, if you don't mind. What's that? Let me just go here, guys, because I'm going to bore you here. Okay. I'm going to make it interesting now. Okay. So what makes Tunisia the Switzerland of the Arab world? Numbers, right? Let me convince you of this. So if you just had your revolution and you want to build a parliament from scratch, how would you do it? You want to have a certain number of representatives, right? You want your number of representatives to be a balance between channels of communication. That's what they call them. The channels of communication happen to be of two types. You got communication with the public and communication within the parliament itself. So in the parliament, what do? If you have n people in parliament, you want every 2 parliamentarians or representatives to talk to each other, right? So mathematically, this is a number of combinations, n choose 2. That's what they call them. It's like the synergy, right? It looks like energy, so it looks like an n squared over 2. So that's the channels of communication within the parliament or within the House of Representatives. And for the channels of communication with the public, what do? If you have a population of 10 million, if you put 1 representative, that means he has P channels to talk to, right? That's quite a bit, right? If you have 2 representatives, that would be P over 2. So one person talks to half of the population and the other one talks to the other half. If you have n people, that's better because you reduce the channels of communication. So you have this balance between competition between these channels of communication. So what you do is you have a function. That's your cost. That's actually money, right? Because that means, you got to give them traveling money, gas, the driver maybe. Okay. So if you want to minimize this function, it turns out that the optimum happens when n is the cubic root of p. If you just solve it mathematically, right? You add these 2 functions. And this heuristic argument actually was discovered looking at numbers from 200 years ago in the context of Britain. Okay, this is called the cubic root law because the power here is p to the 1/3, right? And you can actually do it exactly. If you wanted to solve it, it looks very complicated. I mean, what you do is instead of thinking about n choose 2 is n times n minus 1 over 2. That's a complicated equation to solve. That's a cubic. And you can solve it exactly, but this is not useful, okay? You can look at the actual numbers in the world, right? You look at the populations of the world versus the size of their parliament, right? And maybe do a regression. This would be like experimental, not like a model, what I just showed you, right? And if you do that, this is the power law that you get. You get that the number of people in parliament is the size of the population to the power 0.3298. Looks like a third. It's actually based on the numbers from 2013. I mean, you can download it and play with the Excel file. Okay, so it looks like a cubic root law, but if you take this fudge factor and you push it in, it tells you that actually n looks like an effective population. In fact, what people call it, they call it active population. It's the active population to the 1/3 power. What's the active population? No taxation without representation, right? If you pay your taxes, you get to have representation. So instead of having the full population of the world, right? I mean, the full population of your nation, you take an effective piece of it. namely the people that pay taxes. Like if you look at this law as far as the whole world is concerned, what do you guys think? Is this overrepresented or underrepresented? People around the world, I mean. This is the percentage of people that are, I mean, this has percentage of active people versus population. What do you guys think? That's a small number, right? It's like 3%. Actually, people all over around the world are actually underrepresented, more or less. In the case of Tunisia, here's what they did. This is an actual design. The design was done by FS, the International Federation of Electoral Systems. What they did is they looked at the population of the country in January of 2011. That's right after the revolution, right? 14th of January. It was estimated about 10,600,000. So if you take the cubic root law of this, I mean, it tells you that the size of your parliament should be 219. So maybe they looked at the effective number. You can work it backwards. If you work it backwards, it tells you that, so that means you take the 217 that we have in parliament, and you cube them, you get 10,218,000. So it tells you, it gives you an estimate about the jobless rate, right? If you don't have a job, you don't pay taxes, right? So you have 10.6 million versus 10.2 million. So it tells you maybe there's a jobless rate of about 4%. Okay. The actual number, so what is this one? This is a picture from inside a Jewish synagogue in the Tunisian south. Actually, after the revolution, we started to see that actually we have Jews in Tunisia. We didn't know that before. And what they did is they have this annual pilgrimage, and in which on each egg they put like the wishes that they want. So they took 217 wishes and they put them inside as a well-wishing for the nation. If you do these 10.6 million and you divide them by 60,000, 60,000 was the number chosen by the government, according to international experts, for representatives. So for every 60,000 citizen, you have one MP, right? If you do this division only, you get 177. You don't get the 217. So it's really the other law that I just showed you. And actually, if you want to do this design, this is the official IFAS design. If you want to look at votes early on, you can look at this website of Professor Schugart. It's called Fruits and Votes. And as far as Tunisia is concerned, I told you that if you look at the 217 versus the 219 you should have, the jobless rate was about 4%. In fact, the jobless rate was 18%. So effectively, well, things should have. So the number of people in parliament, should it be higher or lower? What do you guys think? Instead of 4%, it should be lower, right? Exactly. But you see, they just had a census. So maybe they should update these numbers, not for this election, but maybe in 10 years. Okay, so with these numbers, with the 18%, the number of people in parliament should be 205 rather than 217. Okay. So what do you guys think about women in the parliament, Tunisian parliament? Are we better than Afghanistan or worse? You would think, right? Okay. So in fact, there are 59 seats out of 217 for women in the Tunisian parliament, about 27%. And that's actually the double of the average in the region. So we're better than the people around us. I'm going to skip all of this. This is traditional images. Here's from this website called Agora Parliament. This is a website for women in parliament. And it tells you that actually, even with all this wonderful stuff that you have, Tunisia is below Afghanistan. Yeah? By about 1%.
But there's no quota, right?
There's this thing they call the 50-50. It's not a quota, but what they have is, if you have a list, if your first candidate is a man, the second is a woman, the third is a man, the fourth is a woman. That was in 2011, but not now. Now it's ad hoc. I mean, so we'll see what happens. But that one they enforced it in 2011, and because of that, the majority of their candidates were from the Islamist Party. Actually, the majority of women in parliament were from the Islamist Party. Okay, so here's an interesting calculation that kind of tells you one way to remember it, right? So this is from a text by James Bell from the mid-1850s, and he talks about the story of a certain Monsieur Benoit. He wanted to know the size of the population of Carthage in ancient times. So what he did, he looked at the water consumption. We have the aqueduct that comes from Zagouin all the way to Tunis. Water consumption tells you a little bit about it. What we know, for example, we have records of so his estimate was just looking at the water consumption, his estimate for this, do you guys see it here? For the size of the population of Carthage was about 1,300,000 souls in ancient Carthage. 1.3 million, okay? And we know that Carthage had a parliament of 104 people. So if you cube that, actually it tells you right away that, yeah, it's about, okay. We have an easier calculation actually. Just cube the size of the, what they call the Shofetim. The Shofetim is this center that, this sort of parliament that they have. Judges, I think, that's what it means. Okay, just the cubic root, so one way to use it, right? You cube the size of the parliament, you get the population more or less. Okay, so there were so many eulogies for Carthage from way back, right? This is from the writings of James Madison. Okay, I'm just mentioning it because it came in the discussions, right? So Ghannouchi, in the summary, he had a 1-hour interview in which he was talking about Carthage. Completely not what you expect, Okay. Let me show you the big picture. Really what happened in Tunisia, in terms of the electoral design. We moved from what they call a semi-proportional representation system, that's the old system, to a 100% proportional representation. We jumped from this group to this lot. So semi-PR, you can think of Japan and Jordan. And plurality majority systems, you can think of the US and France and Egypt. And we jumped in the group which has Germany with it. And that's quite a sizable group. Well, it's 37% of the people of the world. Okay, so there are lots of largest remainder methods. This is the one that they chose. The one they chose is you take the population divided by the number of people in parliament. That will give you what they call the Hare quota. Hare quota, that's what the party gets, right? You can adjust this by adding a 1 on the bottom or a 2 on the bottom. If you do it, that was a system that was designed by Drup in 1868, or by Imperiali, that's in Italian. And the game with this is actually it favors large parties or it destroys large parties. So that's a whole class of systems. The other class of systems is what they call divisor methods. Divisor methods is what they use for the Electoral College in the US. Let me show you. The current system that we have in Tunisia is the Hare system. This is largest remainders, right? What they do is they look at the quota. Okay, well, I'm not going to describe it much, but let's look at what it does. I'm going to look at the largest party in parliament right now, which is the Islamic Party, and I'll tell you what would happen if I change the system. So under the current system, they have 89 seats. If I change it to any other of the systems that we have, so Drup is another system similar to that one, they get 97 seats with the same votes that they got, with the same numbers that they got, and from the population, the number of seats jump. They can jump as high as 180. So they could have basically killed it. So that's one. This is the portion under the Hare system. So in 2011, effectively, it's as if 6.5 parties run for parliament and 4.62 parties won. And you can count them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.5, okay? So this is under the current system. If you change it to droop, what happens? Droop, that means the largest party eats more, right? They keep eating more and more. This is the extreme, right? Okay. This is the Holland, this is the Belgian system. This is the Swiss system. This is the Swedish system. The Swedish system, what is this one? Modified cent lag. I mean, they jumped from 132, from 89 to 132, right? The Swiss system, they jumped from 89 to 119 with the same numbers that they have. If they use the system that we use to allocate seats, not seats, but to allocate number of representatives for each state in the US, it's called the Huntington method. After Huntington, not the guy from Harvard, but some Huntington from the 20s. They worked for like 28 years to get the system to be approved by Parliament, by the House of Representatives. I mean, he worked very hard for almost 3 decades to get the system adopted by the government here, by the representatives. Okay, under the US system, Ennahda would actually kill it too, right? With the same numbers that they got in the elections. So this one is called equal proportions. So instead of 89, almost double their seats. Okay. Here's the Danish system. Okay. Okay, so we can change this. Let's see. I'm going to look at these in terms of wasted votes, and you tell me what is the best system, okay? So the current system, again, is Hare. The effective number of political parties is 4.62. These are the ones that are represented in parliament. And the wasted votes are 1.2 million. I mean, if I jump, for example, and I use the American system, you can think of it as what, a 2-party system? And that's exactly what the case is here, 1.74. So you don't have a lot of variation, kind of compactifies things, right? But you lose even more votes. I mean, it's like as if 1.8 million people voted and trashed the ballots here. And you can kill it even more, right? You can use a system that was used in Italy after World War II. It's called the Imperiali Divisor scheme, and basically just a 1-party system, right? This in terms of wasted votes. You can cast this also in terms of the number of districts in which the wasted votes exceed the first winner. Under the current system, wasted votes are basically, you have more wasted votes than the first winner in 14 districts out of 33, the current system. If I jump, say, to the American version of things, the wasted votes will be in 25 districts. So in 25 districts, wasted votes actually exceed the first winner, I mean. So in some sense, we got the best, more or less, right? You get everybody represented and happy, or maybe not so happy because you saw the propaganda, I mean. Again, more propaganda. I'm going to skip the propaganda and show you more numbers because the time is coming up here. Okay. So much propaganda here. Let me show you this. This is an interesting piece. Maybe I'll stop here, actually. Okay. This is something called the effective number of political parties. It's a way of measuring representation. I mean, okay, so this is an index that was introduced by Lasco and Takpira in '79. And it just looks at the proportions that all the parties got, sums the squares, and takes the reciprocal. Okay, so I want you to look at the Tunisian South versus the north, the center, more or less. Okay, here's Gibelli. Gibelli is in the south. You can look at the effective number of political parties by looking at the seats. These are the people that are in parliament, or at the votes. So in the south, you're looking at about maybe, in Gibelli it's about what? Maybe 2. and maybe 4 are represented. In Germany, pretty much only like one party, I mean, not a one actually. And if you look at, for example, Janduba, this is in the northwest, or Siliana, the number of political parties, effectively, it's as if 10 parties run and 6 parties won. It's a lefty area. I mean, the left is very actually powerful in the northwest, versus the south, where it's only mostly nationalist or Islamist. You got a mixed bag. For example, Sfax, these numbers are low. Maybe there's some social meaning to that. I'm not sure. So here's, I'll explain just one piece and then I'll probably stop here. Okay, so I showed you the system that they use in Tunisia is called largest remainders. It's related to this camel problem, which I want you to answer at some point. So here's the way things are done in the US, between the states. What you do is you list the populations of all the states. So you start with California, right? You start with infinity, right? So this is as if you're buying seats, okay? So in the first round, everybody gets a representative, right? That's according to the Constitution in the US, right? The first round, everybody gets a representative. So they start at seat 51. At seat 51, they look at the populations of all the states divided by square root of 2. California gets the first one. And then they cross that one out and look at the rest of the numbers. It's very strange numbers, right, for the US. But this is actually how it's done, actually. And then maybe California, maybe New York, I think, and Texas. I think these are the numbers. I mean, in Europe, you don't have to give a seat to every state first. You just look at the different districts. You start dividing by 1, 2, 3. That's in the Belgian system. You know, somehow this is related to a method that was introduced by Adams, one of the founding fathers here, except that you give the states a seat in the first round. Okay. This is the system. In the Swiss system, they changed the things by which you divide. Okay. Should I go through this, guys? I was going to explain this. Let me stop here, actually, because it's going to be just confusing. So what do you guys think about the camels? And how is this related to the way this quota business? You got 17 camels, you got 3 sons, a half of 17 is 8.5, maybe the first son gets an 8. And okay, a third of 17 is 6. Okay. Is it 6? No. 5 and some, right? Yeah. Okay. And a ninth of 17, you only get 1, right? So the solution that was proposed is actually a traveler was passing by. He had a camel. He added it to the list, right? So that's 18. You take half of 18, you get a 9. The first son is happy because he got 8 and some, plus the rest of the fraction. Then the second son got a third, right? A third of 18 is 6, so it's better than 5 and some. And a ninth of 18 is 2, it's better than 1 and some, right? Okay, so it's exactly how you do it if you were doing the Hare method that I was mentioning. How does it work in the case of Hare? You take the 17, you divide it by 2, you get what? We said it's what is it? 8 and a half, right? Okay. And then, so you look at that fraction, okay? So definitely he gets 8 camels, and we'll leave the fraction on the side. You get the 17 over 3, you get 2/3. So you get 2/3 and 5, so he gets the first 5, and then you're left with 2/3. And then you look at the third son, you get 17 over 9. So what is that? Again, 1, and left with 8/9, right? So, okay, so he gets the first camel, and now we look at the remainders. The remainders, the 8/9 is the first one because that's the highest, right? So he gets the next camel. And then the next camel goes to the second son, and the next camel goes to the third son. And then the judge took his camel and left. So that's the version with 17 camels, right? That's exactly, you can do it exactly. This is the Hare method that I told you. The Hare method is actually a British guy from the mid-1800s, right? But it's a very old problem. If you did with 35 camels, and you had a judge or a wise man that was passing by, he would add it to the list, right? But then if you do the calculation, you end up with an extra camel. And that's the price that the judge takes with him. I mean, and everyone is happy, in fact. You don't believe it? That's exactly how this is working. I mean, it's just distribution of camels among people with different fractions. Okay, thank you.